Welcome to my first video that focuses on the features of the ES2 synthesizer. We're going to start with the oscillators today, which you will find in the top left hand side of the ES2. This is the most basic part, and it's the part that you guys should know quite well already, but I am going to talk you through it bit by bit, just so you understand how it works and how to use it. So first, when you open the ES2, you'll find that you're on a default setting. We're going to change that to one that's a little bit more basic. If you go down to tutorial settings, there should be one called analog saw init, and that's going to basically switch off pretty much everything and just leave you with one oscillator on. Now, each oscillator creates a constant waveform, and this particular preset is designed to give you a single sawtooth wave. When played, it sounds like this. Wonderful buzzy sound there. Now, in order to change that wave shape, we need to concentrate on this circle here, and we can change it just by clicking on the button here and moving that round to a different wave shape. So we can start with a sine wave, for example, and give us a nice smooth sound. And we can change that to something like a square wave that sounds a bit, well, a lot buzzier. We've already heard our sawtooth wave. And then we've got a much smoother but slightly buzzier than the sine wave here. This is a triangular wave. And also there are options to change your wave to something else as well. If you control and click on where it says sine, there are plenty of other different types of wave shape for you to choose from, which are much more complex, but I'll let you investigate those at will. So I'm going to start off with a basic wave shape. Let's start with the most basic of all of them. I'm going to stick to a sine wave. As we've already learnt, it is the most basic wave that exists. So we'll start with one of those, and then I'll walk you through a couple of the other points on here too. If we go to our left hand side, you can see that there is another knob which has various numbers surrounding it, and these allow us to either tune up or tune down that wave. When we've got one oscillator on, that's not particularly useful, but when we have more than one on, we can begin to create chords. And if you're familiar with additive synthesis as a subject, which we have gone through before, you know that we can use those tunings in order to build more complex waveforms. Now, I'm going to keep that one on 0. That means that it's at its original tuning. So if I play that sine wave as an A on my keyboard, it actually sounds like an A, as opposed to if I tuned it down by, let's say, 5 semitones, in which it would sound like a, it'd sound like an E instead of an A. So we're going to keep that at 0 for now as its original point, and instead I'm going to add another oscillator. Now we switch these oscillators on by pressing the number that sits next to each oscillator. So I can switch 2 on here, and it does this. It opens this up and it adds another oscillator, and I can add a different texture to that by choosing a different wave shape. Now I've got a, excuse me, hiccuping there, a sine wave here. And I might want to add a little bit of buzz to that by adding perhaps a square wave on top of that. Now at the moment, when I press my key down, you're still only going to hear the sine wave. And that's because I haven't used this yet. Now this is the blending option. It allows us to blend between each oscillator. Each point correlates to a number on to a numbered oscillator. So our top point is basically oscillator 1, our leftmost point is oscillator 2, and our bottom point is oscillator 3. And at the moment, this little node here, which I can move around at will, is all the way at 1, which means it's only listening to oscillator 1 at the moment. Now what I'm going to do, so you can hear the effect that that has, is I'm going to hold down a key, and I'm going to move this node between this point and this point, so between oscillator 1 and oscillator 2, and you'll slowly hear this more buzzing texture of a square wave come into play. So if I hold down a key, you'll hear this happen. You should have been able to hear it change to a more buzzing wave. Now if I had oscillator 3 on as well, then I'd be able to move through all 3 points to get a nice equal blend between the two. And if I stuck that right in the center there, a little bit difficult to do there, that's round about equal. So I've got a sine wave here, a square wave here, and this is automatically set to a sawtooth wave, which sounds like this at an equal blend. She says, as it's not doing anything. Excuse me, I seem to have picked up a keyboard that doesn't work properly. Let's do it this way. And that's basically how that mix and blend works. Now going back to this tuning option here, this now means that we can build up chords with these. So what I'm going to do, just to widen this and give it a little bit of extra texture, is I'm going to tune my square wave down an octave, so that's taken down 12 semitones, and then I'm going to tune this one up an octave, so we get a nice spread of notes here. Now when I play that, you'll hear some very low tones, some mid tones, and some high tones. They'll sound a little bit like this. Now, if I change these live, you'll hear what effect they're having. And that's basically the oscillator section. This section is all about building your waveform. It's getting your base or foundation sound right before we start to change everything else by filtering the sound or amplifying parts or adding a low frequency oscillator or messing with the attack, decay, sustain or release. So that's the most basic bit. I'm next going to talk you through the filter in our next little lesson, but for now, if you could rewatch the video if you need to, answer the questions that I've given you, just to make sure that you understand this section as a whole.